I'm going to say this. I spent several days yelling into the void at people that I thought should know better when it came to the return of Bob Iger over at Disney. It was okay because I wasn't the only voice that was yelling, but there were actually a lot of us, many of us, saying, you're wrong. We're in this mess because of Uncle Bob Iger. Chapek wasn't actually an improvement, to be sure, but he wasn't the root cause. And that's something that early on, not enough people that should know better were actually talking about. And eventually, that message got through. Enough people listened, and then something strange happened. Variety wrote an article. They put it in place yesterday, and what a strange source to get something so clear. Now, I've seen a few people out there covering this on their channels, and I think I have a slightly different take, something a little more nuanced and maybe a little more depth to it, and a little bit more conversation outside the margin. So let's jump into it. Here we go. So the title for this article really does say it all. Iger's big Disney reorg aims to fix problems he helped sow. No kidding. And so far, this headline really does say it all. You don't get that very often. It's all about his legacy at this point. I mean, the guy is living hubris. That, and of course, maybe there's a mop-up job there that we're likely to hear about in drips and drabs over the course of probably the 2 years. That is his exit scheme once again. I feel like we're getting the exit scheme twice with this dude. But let's start where this article begins, because it does a great job. It says, day one, complete reorg. Yeah. The first move is eliminating the DMED, the Disney Media and Entertainment Distribution section, right? That particular part of the company. This actually was something that really created a problem for Disney. This unit's very existence. It's not a bad plan. It's very linear. No one seems to be saying out loud that this unit is maybe what twisted some investors up, because there was way too much transparency. Too much transparency for investors. And let that sink in. It's a strong statement. Investors want to be informed, but this actually had too much information. They were actually seeing the sausage being made, and that gave them not much of an appetite. And of course, that was all because of what was happening with direct to consumer. And it was an ever increasingly, seemingly endless sea of red ink, which is not something that's good for the balance sheet. It's also not something that's good for profits. So it obviously wasn't good for people to see it. And normally all of that stuff is kind of spread out and hidden away. And what's worse, of course, is the rumors that went along with all of that, things that were being hidden away outside of this particular unit. And while some of that may be true, based on what's being reported, I would say those are essentially normal accounting tricks that are used by all of these studios and entertainment companies. It's perfectly legal, but it's not actionable. It's really not relevant to the facts. So we'll move that to the side and just talk about what's here. Iger's plan is to change the structure once again of this entire organization and realign the units responsible for individual deliverables. That's a fancy way of saying, and I'll use Iger's own words, that this puts more decision-making back in the hands of the creative teams and rationalizes costs. Now, how this will save money and improve the content, I don't know. In fact, I think this will likely do exactly the opposite. They spend the same amount of money, which is a giant waste in my opinion, and they make a worse product based on the current employees and management that are in place right now. Because, I mean, it's not like any of those heads changed, right? You're still going to get the same garbage from the same garbage people. Still going to cost the same. The only upside here is that it's easier to hide the money from investors, at least from, Iger's point of view. I mean, it's still going to be there. It's just not going to be as easily seen. So along with the obvious cash sinkhole, Wall Street's attitude has finally come around to an established metric for measuring success when it comes to these streaming services or streaming units at these studios. It's that ARPU. I know you guys hear me talk about it all the time, but that's the more rational metric, right? And it's been one that's now finally prevailed. Clearer heads have as well. And it's kind of brought to light some bigger problems for Disney. I mean, big problem, churn and retention costs. Those are going up dramatically. Not good. But aside from that, the biggest problem, believe it or not, is going to be expenses. And Iger had to say it himself. And this was in his initial memo, and it was subtly said in his town hall. And it isn't in any way different than what Chapek said in his last quarterly. This is a time of enormous change and challenges in our industry. And our work will also focus on creating a more efficient and cost-effective structure. There it is. So in addition to a hiring freeze, what he's saying here is get ready for a few round of layoffs. And all of that is actually necessitated, to be honest with you, because of Iger's own previous strategy prior to the short-lived retirement that he just went through. I would have preferred if he just bought a sports team or something, but we're beyond that. And to be straightforward, that's kind of the sinister thing here. This has been and will continue to be Iger's fault until it's fixed. All of it, everything, even the brief tenure of Chapek. And that's kind of where I want to pick up with the article. Now, I'm going to read parts of the article and insert my commentary, but I want to be pretty clear verbatim. So here we go. Iger's feelings about the structure were clear from his internal memo, in which he wrote, "It is my intention to restructure things in a way that honors and respects creativity as the heart and soul of who we are." And, of course, he announced that Kareem Daniel, would exit the company. It's kind of rude, to be honest with you, but I can see why. He doesn't trust him. It was kind of Chapek's right-hand man, so you gotta go. In hindsight, and this is from the article again, in hindsight, aspects of Chapek's strategy were certainly misguided, but it's worth remembering that Chapek was trying to repair dysfunction caused by another reorganization implemented by Iger before the launch of Disney+. Now, mind you, and this is me adding this, Iger's attention was divided. He was basically working on two streaming services at the same time. And while Disney went out and acquired BAMTech, Apple had to figure out a different way of going about it to make this thing happen. But Iger was on both sides of this. So he was on two boards, two minds, in two places, doing the same thing. Ooh, that's a little too cozy for me. Anyway, we'll continue on with the article. Late as his tenure in 2018, the once and future CEO introduced a new corporate structure that created Disney's first direct-to-consumer division, or DTC. It's just easier to say. The reorg reportedly led to power struggles between Kevin Mayer, he's not there anymore, who headed the DTC unit, and then Disney TV studio head Peter Rice, who's also not there because he was a bad guy. But anyway, so Peter Rice over who had authority to greenlight shows for Disney's streaming unit. Well, there you go. Chapek's subsequent restructuring was partly intended to correct those problems, according to multiple reports in the wake of the 2020 reorg. Now, mind you, he still had Iger over his shoulder telling him he was doing things wrong, and he had people circumventing some of his desires by climbing around him into the board and talking to Iger. But we're going to set that aside. And I quote from the article once again. Furthermore, while Chapek also made mistakes with regard to streaming, no one forced him to revise Iger's modest subscriber projections for Disney Plus to such high levels, which are now looking even more unrealistic. All that's fair. He was, to a large extent, following a playbook set by Iger. I have been saying that for almost a year. Almost a year. It was Iger who engineered Disney's streaming strategy in the first place. I've also been saying that. And made no secret of the fact that it would lead to billions of dollars in losses. And though the media industry arguably should have foreseen that Netflix's constant growth model for streaming was unsustainable, and that the market correction would come at some point, Chapek doesn't deserve sole blame for that industry-wide error. The days of wine and roses always end. And to be honest with you, everybody should have seen this coming, and some people did, including Netflix. That's why they're actually doing much better after a couple of very sour quarters. You're always going to have a correction. This is just going to hurt these other studios more. So the last paragraph that we just went through essentially sums it all up fairly perfectly. It really wasn't Chapek's fault. It's always been Iger. And Iger will now get a second crack at it, according to the article. But the fact that his first attempt helped lead the company here should not be ignored. If the board's confidence in him is not misplaced exactly, it at least should be tempered with a healthy dose of skepticism. I can tell you that I'm very skeptical. I'm very skeptical here. I'm also not sold on the idea that streaming was the real reason that Chapek was shown the door. I can't really go into it. A lot of things like dripping around the edges that nobody's really diving into right now. It was likely something that was far more internally insidious that got him booted out. But that is certainly enough of a scapegoat to redirect the more casual investigators, which pretty much is all the mainstream media now. They really don't care. In fact, you could write a press release for them and there's an article and they'll do that. It's just easier. Of course, I don't think a lot of investors are going to dive too deeply into it either, and I don't think analysts feel like it's conducive to their bottom line, so we'll see what comes out. There will be things that come out. The whole article itself actually rings true. The company is where it's at now solely because of Iger. I'm going to keep saying it until the cows come home, folks. From the content to the structure of the way things were being done, he does have a lot of work in front of him. And of course, that's all in an effort to save his legacy, because after all, that's pretty much all he cares about. And that, and of course, the 400 million plus in stock that he has in Disney, which I'm sure he cares a lot about. But hey, what do you think? Do you think that Iger will be held somewhat accountable for the position Disney's in now? Do you think he has a shot in heck of fixing it? Do you think that perhaps Disney needs to focus on its core businesses and its core audience, which would be family and family content, and of course theme parks and the associated entertainment? Anyway, just let me know what you think. Use the comments section down below, and hopefully we can have a conversation about it. And as always, support independent creators here on the platform, because they absolutely do deserve your time and your support. It's the only way that they're going to be able to grow. It's the only way I can grow. So if you're leaving comments, if you're hitting the like button, if you're subscribed, if you turn on the notifications bell, if you participate in any of these things and share out the content, you're gonna help the creators you care about become more influential. And that's kind of how it works with something that's algorithmically driven, like all the video platforms I'm on. And of course, with that, I'm gonna video the same way I always do. Be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, wash your hands, of course, because it's good hygiene. And until next time, bye. And don't forget to check out my Rumble at rumble.com/CultureCasino.
Thanks for visiting today. Be sure you're subscribed and hit that for alerts.
Yay!
Of course, like and share all of the videos that you can, as it helps with the algorithm. Have a great day.